lifted on high upon columns that soared like the thoughts of its dwellers, thoughts that transcended the earth, though they sank down at last into ashes. So had Apollo dreamed to his lyre, and its tops were a grandeur domed, as if seeking to roof men's lives with a hint of the heavens. Marble his columns rose, and with marble his roofs were appointed. Conquered wealth of the world in its largeness, suffered, supporting purities of marble, glories of gold. Nor only of matter blazed there the brutal pomps, but images, mystic or mighty, crowded ceiling and wall, a work that the gods even admire, hardly believing that forms like these were imagined by mortals. Here, upon earth, where sight is a blur and the soul lives encumbered. Scrolls that remembered in gems the thoughts austere of the ancients bordered the lines of the stone, and the forms of serpent and naiad ran in relief on those walls of pride in the palace of Priam. Mingled with dryads who tempted and fled, and satyrs who followed, sports of the nymphs in the sea and the woods, and their meetings with mortals, sessions and battles of Trojan demigods, deaths that were famous, wars and loves of men, and the deeds of the golden immortals. Pillars sculptured with gods and with giants soared up from bases lion-carved, or were seated on bulls and bore into grandeur amply those halls where they soared, or in lordliness slenderly fashioned, dressed in flowers and reeds, like virgins standing on Ida, guarded the screens of stone, and divided alcove and chamber. Ivory carved and broidered robes, and the riches of Indus, cherished in sandalwood, triumphed and teemed in the palace of Priam. Doors that were carven and fragrant sheltered the joys of its princes. Here, in a chamber of luminous privacy, Paris was arming. Near him moved Helen, a whiteness divine, and intent on her labour fastened his cuirass, bound the greaves, and settled the hauberk, thrilling his limbs with her touch, that was heaven to the yearning of mortals. She, with her hands of delight, caressing the senseless metal, pressed her lips to his brilliant armour. She bowed down, she whispered, "Cuirass, allowed by the gods, protect the beauty of Paris. Keep for me that for which country was lost, and my child, and my brothers." Yearning, she bent to his feet, to the sandal strings of her lover. Then, as she gazed up, changed grew her mood, for the daemon within her rose, that had banded Greece and was burning Troy into ashes. Slowly a smile that was perfect and perilous over her beauty dawned like the sunlight on paradise. Strangely she looked on her lover. So might a goddess have gazed, as she played with the love of a mortal, passing an hour on the earth, ere she rose up white to Olympus. So art thou winner, Paris, yet, and thy spirit ascendant leads this Troy where thou wilt, O thou mighty one veiled in thy beauty, first in the dance and the revel, first in the joy of the melee, Who would not leave for thy sake, and repent it not, country and homestead? Winning thou reignest still over Troy, over fate, over Helen. Always so canst thou win. Has death no claim on thy beauty? Fate no scourge for thy sins? How the years have passed by in a glory, years of this heaven of the gods, O ravisher, since from my hearthstone ceasing thou borest me compelled to thy ships, and my joy on the waters. Troy is enringed with the spears, her children fall and her glories. Mighty souls of heroes have gone down prone to the darkness. Thou and I abide. The mothers wail for our pleasure. Wilt thou then keep me forever, O son of Priam in Troia? Fate was my mother, they say, and Zeus for this hour begot me. Art thou a god too, O hero, disguised in this robe of the mortal, brilliant, careless of death and of sin, as if sure of thy rapture? What then, if fate today were to lay her hands on thee, Paris? Calmly he looked on the face of which Greece was enamoured, the body for whose desire great Troy was a sacrifice. Tranquil, regarded, lovely and dire on the lips he loved, that smile of a goddess. Saw the daughter of Zeus in the woman, yet was not shaken. Temptress of Argos, he answered, thou snare for the world to be seized in. Thou then hopest to escape? But the gods could not take thee, O Helen. How then thy will that to mine is a captive? Or how, though with battle, he who has lost thee, unhappy, the Spartan, bright Menelaus? All things yield to a man, and Zeus is himself his accomplice, when like a god he wills without remorse or longing. Thou, on this earth, art mine, since I claimed thee, beheld, not speaking, but with thy lids that fell, thou veiledst thy heart of compliance. Then in whatever beyond I shall know how to take thee, O Helen, even as here upon earth I knew, in heaven as in Sparta. I, on Elysian fields, will enjoy thee as now in the Troad. Silent, a moment she lingered like one who is lured by a music rapturous, heard by himself alone and his lover in heaven. Then, in her beauty compelling, she rose up divine among women. Yes, it is good, she cried, what the gods do and actions of mortals. Good is this play of the world, it is good, the joy and the torture. Praised be the hour of the gods, when I wedded the bright Menelaus. Praised, more praised, the keels that severed the seas towards Helen, churning the senseless waves that knew not the bliss of their burden. Praised to the end the hour, when I passed through the doors of my husband, laughing with joy in my heart for the arms that bore and enchained me. Never can death undo what life hast done for us, Paris. Nor whatsoever betide can the hour be unlived of our rapture. This too is good, that nations should meet in the shock of the battle, heroes be slain and a theme be made for the songs of the poets, songs that shall thrill with the name of Helen, the beauty of Paris. Well is this also, that empires should fall for the eyes of a woman. Well that for Helen Hector ended, Memnon was slaughtered, strong Sarpedon fell, and Troilus ceased in his boyhood. Troy, for Helen burning, her glory, her empire, her riches, this is the sign of the gods, and the type of things that are mortal. Thou who art kin to the masters of heaven, unconstrained like thy kindred high on this ancient stage of the Troad, with gods for spectators, play till the end thy part, O thou wondrous and beautiful actor. Fight and slay the Greeks, my countrymen. Victor returning, take for reward of the play thy delight of Argive Helen. Force from my bosom a hint of the joy denied to the death-claimed. Rob in the kiss of my lips a pang from the raptures of heaven. Clasping him wholly, her arms of desire were a girdle of madness, cestus divine of the dread Aphrodite. He, with her kisses, flushed like the gods with unearthly wine, and rejoiced in his ruin. Thus, while they conversed, now, in this hour that was near to their parting, last upon earth, a fleet-footed slave girl came to the chamber. Paris, thy father and mother desire thee. There in the stranger's outer hall, Aeneas and Helymus wait for thy coming. So, with the Argive, he wended to Priam's ample chamber, far in Laomedon's house, where Troy looked upwards to Ida. Priam and Hecuba there, the ancient grey-haired rulers, waiting him, sat in their chairs of ivory calm, in their greatness. Hid in her robes, at their feet, lay Cassandra, crouched from her visions. Since, O my father, said Paris, thy thoughts have been with me, thy blessing surely shall help me today in my strife with the strength of Achilles. Surely the gods shall obey in the end the might of our spirits. Pallas and Hera, flame-sandaled Artemis, Zeus and Apollo. Ever serve the immortal brightnesses, man, when he stands up firm with his will uplifted, a steadfast flame towards the heavens. Eris works in his heart, and Hephaestus burns in his labour. Priam replied to his son, Forewilled by the gods, Alexander, all things happen on earth, and yet we must strive, who are mortals. Knowing all vain, yet we strive. For our nature, seizing us always, drives like the flock that is herded and urged towards shambles or pasture. So have the high gods fashioned these tools of their action under pleasure. Failure and grief are their engines, no less than the might of the victor. They in the blow descend and resist in the sobs of the smitten. Such are their goads, that I too must walk in the paths that are common. Even I, who know, must send for thee, moved by Cassandra. Speak, O my child, since Apollo has willed it, once and be silent. But in her raiment hidden, Cassandra answered her father, "No, for my heart has changed since I cried for him, vexed by Apollo. Why should I speak? For who will believe me in Troy? Who believed me ever in Troy or the world? Event and disaster approve me only, my comrades. Not men in their thoughts, not my brothers and kinsmen. All by their hopes are gladly deceived, and grow wroth with the warner, half-blind prophets of hope, entertained by the gods in the mortal. Wiser blind, if nothing they saw, or only the darkness. I too once hoped, when Apollo pursued me with love in his temple. Round me already there gleamed the ray of the vision prophetic, thrill of that rapture I felt, and the joy of the god in his seeing. Nor did I know that the knowledge of mortals is bound unto blindness. Either only they walk with the coloured dreams of the senses, treading the greenness of earth and deeming the touch of things real, or, if they see, by the curse of the gods, their sight into falsehood easily turns, and leads them more stumbling astray than the sightless. So, are we either blind in a darkness or dazzled by seeing? Thus have the gods protected their purpose and baffled the sages. Over the face of the truth their shield of gold is extended. But I deemed otherwise, urged by the dreadful one, he who sits always veiled in us, fighting the gods whom he uses. I cried to Apollo, "Give me thy vision sheer, not such as thou givest to thy prophets, troubled though luminous. Clear be the vision, and ruthless to error. Far-darting God, who art veiled by the sun, and by death thou art shielded, then I shall know that thou lovest." He gave, alarmed and reluctant, driven by fate and his heart. But I mocked him. I broke from my promise, courage fatal helping my heart to its ruin with laughter. Always now I remember his face, that grew tranquil and ruthless, hear the voice divine and implacable. "Since thou deceivest even the gods, and thou hast not feared to lie to Apollo, speak shalt thou henceforth only truth, but none shall believe thee. Scorned in thy words, rejected yet more for their bitter fulfilment, scourged by the gods thou must speak, though thy sick heart yearns to be silent. For in this play thou hast dared to play with the masters of heaven. Girl, it is thou who hast lost. Thy voice is mine, and thy bosom. Since then, all I foreknow. Therefore anguish is mine, for my portion. Since then all whom I love must perish, slain by my loving. Even of that I denied him, Violent force shall bereave me, grasped mid the flames of my city, and shouts of her merciless victors. But to Cassandra answered gently the voice of her brother. Sister of mine, afflicted and seized by the dreadful Apollo, all whose eyes can pierce that curtain gaze into dimness. This they have glimpsed, and that they imagine deceived by their natures, seeing the forms in their hearts of dreadful things and of joyous. As in the darkness our eyes are deceived by shadows uncertain. Such is their sight, who rend the veil that the dire gods have woven. Busy our hearts are weaving thoughts and images always. After their kind they see what here we call truth. So thy nature, tender and loving, plagued by this war and its fears for thy loved ones, sees calamity everywhere. When the event, like the vision, seems as in every war, the beloved must fall and the cherished, then the heart cries, it has happened as all shall happen I mourn for. All that was bright it misses, and only seizes on sorrow. Dear, on the brightness look, and if thou must prophesy, tell us rather of great Pelides slain by my spear in the onset. But with a voice of grief, the sister answered her brother, yes, he shall fall, and his slayer too perish, and Troy with his slayer. But in his spirit rejoicing, Paris answered Cassandra, let but this word come true. For the rest, the gods shall avert it. Look once more, O Cassandra, and comfort the heart of thy mother. See, O seer, my safe return with the spoils of Achilles. And, with a voice of grief, the sister answered her brother, thou shalt return for thy hour, while Troy yet stands in the sunshine. But in his spirit exultant, Paris, seizing the omen, hearest thou my father, my mother? She who still prophesied evil, now perceives of our night this dawning. Yet is it grievous, since through a heart that we love must be pierced the heart of Achilles. Fate, with this evil satisfied, turn in the end from Troia. Bless me, my father, and thou, O Hecuba, mother long patient, still forgive that thy children have fallen for Helen and Paris. Tenderly yearning, his mother drew him towards her and murmured, all for thy hyacinth girls was forgiven, even from childhood, and for thy sunlit looks, O wonder of charm. O Paris, Paris, my son, though Troy must fall, thy mother forgives thee, blessing the gods who have lent thee to me for a while in their sunshine. Theirs are fate and result, but ours is the joy of our children. Even the griefs are dear that come from their hands while they love us.